Hey there, Seth with Tycon Systems. Excited to be here today. Hopefully everybody's having some good weather right now. We're finally seeing the sun out here in Bluffdale, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City. Want to do a quick introduction about Tycon and what we offer today. We have some new products that we recently released, and then maybe refresh some of the products that we've had for a while, and maybe hopefully most of you are at least a little experienced with Tycon. If not, then welcome. Um, we're excited to start sharing some of our products with you today. As you can see, Tycon Systems, we have three different brand types that we offer here. With our we have our Tycon Solar, which would include our Remote Pro system, our UPSPRO, and then our monitoring products, as well as our BreezePro. Our Tycon Wireless, we have some point-to-point bridges, and then our Tycon Power, so anything low voltage. And so I'm going to dive in deep with each of those. If you have any questions, you can reach out through the message board, or we're always available. We have a pretty solid support team. So we are located in Bluffdale, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City, about 20 minutes south. We started in 2008. We kind of began as a wireless bridge offering some point-to-point backhauls, and we really got early into the solar game, and this is going to be for remote applications. Our owner and president is Scott Parsons. If you've been in the market for an extended period of time, he has been as well. So he started a company called PoE Wireless many years ago, and then started Tycon, like I said, in 2008. Tycon Solar, we'll start jumping with this. This, a brand that's we're very excited about. We've been working in solar for quite a bit of time, so we'll just jump right in then. So our Remote Pro system is our solar system complete kit, and we customize based on each specific application. There's nothing, cookie cutter or just a one size fits all option. As you can see, with the different size solar panels, different enclosures, different battery banks, we're able to offer various continuous power. And like I said, we base it on the application that you have. So when we do this, we look at the total power draw of all your devices, and we typically pull that from the data sheets. And then we look at the peak sunlight in your area. Obviously, if you're powering same cameras, same access points in Arizona, it's going to be a different system than if you were powering in Montana. So we want to look at all the variables so that we can make sure that you have enough panels and battery bank to keep your equipment powered 24 hours a day. So we range from anywhere from a 2.5 watt continuous up to a 200 watt continuous. And this is based off of 6 hours of peak sunlight. I will dive a little bit deeper on the peak sunlight, what that means. So we have a what we call our die cast enclosure. It holds about a 9 amp hour battery bank. From there, we have our polycarbonate, the 8 watt system there. That is a plastic enclosure that will hold up to 36 amp hours of battery. And then we have our small aluminum enclosure that is powder coated, will hold 2 batteries of our 52 amp hour. And then from there, we have a steel enclosure and a larger aluminum enclosure. About same size, both will hold up to 200 amp hours of battery bank. Our 80 watt system is our large steel enclosure. You can have 8 batteries of about 52 amp hours each, about the size of a car battery, so you have 400 amp hours there. Our 150 watt and 200 watt system can hold up to 720 amp hours of battery. So we recently, we have a 12 volt, 180 amp battery, and so 4 of those, we can actually add more, so we can grow from this. So like I said, it's based completely off your application. And we have a 15 watt panel, a 35, 85, and then you can put those in an array of 2 or 4, giving you 170 and 340 watt. Then we have our 360 watt solar panel, and we can put those in an array of 2 or 4 to give you 720 or 1440 watts of solar panel. So a lot of different sizes, a lot of different things to choose from, and today we're going to teach you how to calculate that system. So if you go to calculators.tyconsystems.com, this is the calculator you'll see, and you can put all the different variables in there, right? So hopefully we're trying to get some fixed numbers. So first we look at the total load in watts. We'll look at data sheets. That's the best place to find the actual load unless you've measured it and you're confident. But we'll look at the data sheets. And so I'll show you kind of a typical application. We also look at hours of operation. Are you running it 24 hours a day? That's going to be the majority of the systems that we do. But maybe you're powering some LED lights or a irrigation pump or some type of device that you're only going to power periodically. That's where you can change that. Then we'll look at the average hours of peak sunlight, and you see the lookup tab. You can type in the zip code or the city state, and we do have a PV Watts tool if you are outside the US. And then you can add extra hours of battery backup needed. So we'll look at the first, power draw. So let's say that we have an access point, which would be our easy bridge, maybe have some like 4 cameras, and then you need a switch. So we'll look at this is pulled from data sheets. Power draw for the easy bridge is 4 watts at 24 volt passive PoE. Then we'll look at cameras. A lot of different ways to power cameras. So here it's listed as PoE or 12 volt DC at 8 watts max. With that, I look at how are we going to power these as well, right? Is 12 volt the ideal, or is it PoE? And usually when it says PoE under cameras, it's going to mean a 48 volt 802.3 AF or AT compliant. And then we look at our switch. We want to see how are we going to be able to power the different devices. So the Versus switch has a port at 24 volt PoE that'll power our easy bridge, and then it has 4 ports at 802.3 AT that'll power each camera. So anything that you're adding to it is power consumption. So when you add all these together, we're at 39 watts power draw. So we'll go ahead and plug that in. And then we look at the peak sunlight, and this is going to run 24 hours a day, so we'll skip that slide. But so let's say that we're going to power this in Atlanta, Georgia. Those are my old stomping grounds. That's where I grew up. And so when we type that in, it gives us the average hours of peak sunlight per day. Now, obviously, you're going to have more daylight, but we're looking at peak sunlight when the solar panel is in direct contact with the sun. So we'll look at the lowest month, because we know when we power it in December, in this case, and it'll work, if we design it for December, we know it'll work year round. So we're going to go ahead and plug in 3.79. So when you put in the factors of 39 watts draw, 24 hours a day, 3.79 hours of peak sunlight, and I went ahead and added a buffer of 24 hours of extra battery backup, just to give you some extra autonomy in case you have some cloudy days, some cloudy weather there. When you hit calculate, we're going to show you the minimum size solar panel needed, the minimum battery bank, and then we'll give you some suggested systems. And so when you go to our site, you check that out, then you'll be able to see, and we kind of we try to make our parts intuitive. So RP just stands for Remote Pro, and that's our complete kit. The STL would be the type of enclosure. So you might see RPPL for polycarbonate, RPDC for die cast, RPST for our standard steel enclosure, RPAL for aluminum. So a lot of different types of enclosures. And then we show the voltage that you're going to get output from the solar controller. So these can be a 12 or 24 volt DC output or a 48 volt output. The M stands for our MPPT solar controller, and I'm going to cover the different types of controllers in a minute. The next group of numbers, the 400, is the amp hours of battery bank. So this would be our large steel enclosure filled with 400 amp hours of battery bank, and then the last is the 340 watts of solar array. So this is the system that you'd look at. Then when we select, the way to decide the difference is what voltage do we want, right? So in this scenario, we would look at the RPSTL 48M, that's a 48 volt DC output, which would power our Versus switch. And then the Versus switch would be able to, you've had the 24 volt PoE to the easy bridge, and then like I said, the 4 ports going to the cameras. We also, so in addition to our fixed solar, we also have our mobile Solar Pro. This comes with 720 watts of solar array, 720 amp hour battery bank. We include an 18-foot mast. And all of the cables are embedded in that mast. So there's no risk of somebody coming up and cutting cables, dropping the mast, because it is fully pneumatic. We do provide the air compressor. Everything that you needed is pre-wired inside that enclosure, which is a lockable enclosure as well. So a lot of great features to our mobile Solar Pro. We can do custom colors if needed. We do have a standard of black, but we do construction orange, and we've recently done like a powder blue and a yellow for specific customers. So we are able to customize based on your requirements. We can, as you can see on the bottom picture, we have our BreezePro, so you can help supplement and charge the batteries when you maybe have less sunlight. What's nice about our trailer, well, many things are nice, but one of the good features is you can swivel the solar panels. So when you're north of the equator, you always want the panels facing south. So you can park the trailer wherever you need, and then you can swivel the panels south facing and select the angle to make sure that you have the best charging capacity as possible. So we do have some stands that'll pop out to help stabilize the unit. And then we do include our Versa switch at the top to power all the different devices that you're going to mount there. So when talking controllers, there are two types. We have our PWM, which stands for power width modulation, and then MPPT, or maximum power point tracking. The main difference between the two is MPPT does better with lower sunlight. It is able to receive a higher voltage from your solar panels, which allows you, which provides more current sending to your battery, so it charges it much quicker than the PWMs. The PWMs are great for smaller applications, but when I'm, quoting out a larger system, I definitely believe that the MPPTs are the way to go. Just like I said, it has a lot more intelligence to the electronics. So, like I said, it's able to receive higher voltage to charge much quicker. Our TP-DIN SC4820 that you see there, that is basically our 3-in-1 unit. That is a 20 amp MPPT controller, and it has a 7-port PoE switch built into it. And those ports can be configured to 24 or 48 volt PoE. It also has a 24 or 48 volt DC auxiliary output. And so this does all of the brains, all of the intelligence of the system. And then we also have our TP-DIN monitor software built into it. So you're able to monitor everything that's going on at your site and not have to wire anything extra. You just have your PoE out running to your devices. And that can be passive or 802.3 AT on those ports. Our UPSPRO, very similar to the Remote Pro, and our UPSPRO is solar ready. So if you do want to add some autonomy, this is basically our battery bank, the battery charger, and with the AC input. So let's say that you do have AC power at a site that's but maybe susceptible to brownouts or blackouts. So you're able to connect all your equipment and give yourself some extra autonomy. Again, we have our die-cast enclosure, polycarbonate, as well as our aluminum and steel enclosures. There, I listed there on the part numbers. Well, those aren't technically our part numbers, but the battery capacity. So from a 9 amp hour battery to 36, 50 or 100, 200 and 400 amp hours. So we try to leave, especially in our aluminum and our steel enclosures, we leave some extra space so that you can mount some equipment. For example, our large steel enclosure has 2 trays for the batteries, so you can put 4 side by side. 2 levels of that. It's got some depth, so you can mount some extra equipment on the DIN rails that's provided. And then there's also a 1U rack mount. So when we design our UPS system, we're looking at 2 things. We're looking again at the power draw, but also how much extra battery backup is required. It could be as little as an hour or 8 hours, 24, 48. So you tell us what you're powering. We'll find the data sheets. We'll look all that up for you. And then you tell us how much time is needed. So let's say that we'll take that same scenario of the access point and 4 cameras. and you want 24 hours of backup. When you hit calculate, you'll see a couple different options. So we have our UPS, which would be our smaller, that should actually be a UPL, got a little typo there. That would be our larger of our aluminum enclosures at 12 or 24 volt DC output. You'll need a 200 amp hour battery bank, minimum 156, but obviously as we're putting 4 batteries together, you'd be 200, and it's capable up to 600 watts. So a couple different options. We have our UPS TL, so that'll be our large steel enclosure, and the 12 or 24 volt DC, or we have our 48 volt as well if you need a 48 DC output. Our BreezePro, this is great when you are in areas with lower sunlight. This will help supplement. So when we design our system, we keep solar in mind. We want to make sure that you have enough buffer, but if it is close to having to kick up to the next size system, and you're in an area that maybe has lower sunlight in winter months, but you have good wind speeds, this is a great option to add. You can connect to any 12 or 24 volt solar application. It has a built-in controller, so it'll tie directly into the battery bank, and the batteries will recognize which voltage is providing a higher input, whether it's wind or sunlight. And then it'll help supplement. So when sun goes down, but you still have good wind, you're able to help charge those batteries and give you extra autonomy. It does recognize when the batteries are fully charged, and it'll kick out the current through the tail. So the heat will dissipate through that tail and prevent the overcharging. And then our TP-10 monitor Web 3. I talked a little bit about this just as the monitor firmware that's built into our MPPT controller, but this is great for any remote application. If you're in an area that you don't want to drive out to, but you want to check on battery voltage or your current, maybe the temperature, you can set up 4 voltage meters, 4 current sensors, and 2 temperature sensors. You're also able to set up 4 relays, so you can turn on, turn off, lighting, pump, reboot your camera. You can do all of that remotely. Our Web 3 we released just about 2 months ago or so, and that has a quick connect cable. It's an RS485 cable that'll tie directly into our MPPT controllers. So now you don't have to hardwire everything in. You can just run a little patch cable directly to the controller, and then you can set up those alerts. So you can set up compound logistics, like if voltage drops below this, turn off this relay, or if the temperature spikes, send me an email alert. Temperature drops, I want an alert. So you can set up those email alerts so that you can have complete access and notifications when something is going wrong. And then you can also, we have that onboard data logger and history graph, so that if you are having issues at your solar site or battery site, you can send those graphs over to us, and we can have our support team check it out, see what's going on. But it gives you some good insight to that. So this is truly a great tool that you should have at every site, that maybe you don't want to take that trek out there just to check on the batteries and everything. Here's just a few of our applications that we have. We have our system in the middle of a lake. This is an osprey nest, and they wanted to monitor the migration and nesting patterns of an osprey bird. So they put this nest in the middle of the lake, and then just had a little short backhaul to their main hub where they could record everything that's going on. We have several sites just out in the middle of nowhere, or a mountaintop that's doing a high power backhaul from one peak to another. We have LED lighting, just lighting up a little city sign. Didn't want to trench through the parking lot to run power. So a lot of different applications that you have available to you. So any site that maybe you need to get power to, this might be a great application or opportunity for you to extend your network. So let's jump into Tycon Wireless. So we start our EasyBridge. Our EasyBridge is truly a plug-and-play point-to-point backhaul. We'll start with our EasyBridge Lite and HD version. Same radio. The main difference is that our HD, we provide 2 industrial PoE injectors as well as 2 lengths of 75-foot Cat5 cable. If you already have your patch cable, maybe not running that far, you might select our EasyBridge Lite. We offer both in 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gig, and they can have up to 100 megabit speeds and up to 3 miles with line of sight. Our Ultras have a little bit higher capacity with that type of antenna pattern. So still 100 megabit, but you're able to go up to 4 miles and 8 miles from the 5 gig and the 2.4. Again, we provide the Cat5 cable and the PoE injectors for you. And then we just recently released our EasyBridge Dual AC. So very similar antenna pattern to our EasyBridge LT and HD. However, with our AC products, with 2.4 gig, you can get up to 400 megabit, and 5 gig, you can get almost 900 meg. Again, up to 3 miles, and we do provide 48 volt PoE injectors with our systems. So I know that you guys are probably familiar with a lot of different options when it comes to wireless backhauls. This is just something that you can add to your offerings. Like I said, it's a plug and play. So we pre-configure in our warehouse, and so you can pair them up. So when you receive your pair, you have an A side and B side, or access point and client bridge. And then all you're doing is mounting, connecting PoE injectors, and they're communicating, pointing them at each other, and then they talk. So, you know, a great option for maybe some customers that are just kind of like, you know, you don't need to run a full point to multi-point solution, but maybe just a bridge. You can put them in point to multi-point and have add a couple of client bridges as long as it's within that antenna pattern. And I think that's about 25, 26 degrees beam width. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on our wireless. It's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Lastly, we'll go to Tycon Power. Now I could spend all day with this, but I'd probably bore you and myself to death. So I'm going to highlight our main parts. We do just about everything that you can think of when it comes to low voltage. So, you know, I'm not going to read through our bullet points there. You can see that. I will highlight some of our top products for each category. You know, we've been accused of being SKU heavy, mostly by our warehouse, and mostly it's your guys' fault. And I say that lovingly. You know, when we go to shows, we listen to our customers, and they say, you know, it'd be great if I had this. And so our engineers will go to shows, we'll talk to our customers, and when you bring us ideas, we try to put it into practice and build a product to meet your needs. So if you have suggestions on something that's maybe missing in the market, we are all ears. So I'm going to jump into our DC converters. You know, when we're designing different solar solutions, we get to see all the different manufacturers that are out there. And you probably noticed that a lot of manufacturers have different voltage requirements. So we try to find something that will fit your application. So we have anything from 9 to 72 volt DC input, and then we have 24, 48, or 56 volt PoE output. We have passive 802.3 AF, AT, and now BT compliant. If you're not familiar with that terminology, I think most of you probably are, but if it's something that's new to you, you know, we're happy to kind of educate and talk about the difference between passive and compliant. We have a standard 10100 and gigabit DC converters as well. So some of our DC converters, these are our most popular, is our 1224 and our 1224G. G just stands for gigabit, that's the only difference. But it'll accept anything from 9 to 36 volt input and give you a 24 volt PoE output. That'll power your, you know, multiple access points like your Ubiquities, Mimosas, Cambium, and of course Tycon EasyBridge. And then our DC-DC 2448 GDHP. So again, 18 to 36 volt input, so 24, and then 48 volt would be your 56 volt. When you're talking about higher power, then that's typically meaning it's going to be a 56 volt output. And this would be gigabit, and D stands for 802.3 AF, or in this instance, AT compliant. So there's a handshake there for your, you know, most cameras are going to be 802.3 AF or AT. We offer many PoE converters. We put this in our DC converter option. This would be our, like, let's say that you have a compliant switch, but you need to down convert to power a 24 volt access point. So this is just a nice inline 48 volt in, 24 volt out, up to 12 watts to power that type of device. And then we have our 2456. This is our 24 volt in. We're going the other direction. So we've got a 24 volt switch powering a bunch of different devices, but you need to bump up one to power a camera. And so this will convert from 24 up to 56 at 802.3 AT compliance. So a couple of unique little PoE converters that we offer. We have some VHP, or very high power. So, you know, as the technology improves, a lot of high power cameras are requiring that extra, you know, it can't, the 802.3 AF isn't enough. And so, you know, offering something up to 70 watts and to power those different devices has been needed. These are great for your high power access points, like your air fibers, your high power mimosas, cambiums, in that genre, and then those PTZ cameras. So the XX in the part number stands there. We have different part numbers based on the voltage input. So we have one that's just 10 to 60 volts. So it'll basically take whatever voltage you're providing. And then we can also narrow it down. So if you know you have a 12 volt range or a 24 volt input or a 48 volt input. So we have that, that option as well. We have both passive and 802.3 AT compliant and 4 pair gigabit PoE. We now released our BT. So that's the new standard. Eventually it'll make its way up to 90 watts. But again, for now we have the 70 watt option. That's what we've seen most devices. They haven't exceeded that yet. But as the technology, like I said, it improves, we will be moving along with that. So we are already working on our 90 watt devices. Let's talk PoE now. So PoE, typically what we refer to as AC input. We have 24, 48, and 56 volt PoE output, again, passive and compliant, gigabit, 10100, and now 10 gigabit. And all of our devices have built-in surge protection, so you don't need to have an extra inline surge protector. It doesn't hurt, but because you know, in case one fails, you at least have the others backup. But just some good options, knowing that your power supplies are going to be have that built-in surge protection. We have, again, our 24 volt PoE. This one's gigabit. We have different versions and different power capacities, and that will just depend on your requirements. So there will be different part numbers or variables based on your requirements, whether it's you know, the voltage output as well as the power output, and whether it's gigabit, non-gigabit, and then passive and compliant. This is our 10 gigabit. We have the TP PoE Plus and the PoE Plus Plus. So that is going to be an 802.3 AT output. The PoE Plus is up to 30 watts and the Plus Plus is up to 60 watts. And then we do have a 24 volt PoE injector up to 10 gig as well. We also have splitters. Customers need to go the other direction, right? Where they have PoE and they need a split between data and power. So we have a couple of different options with this. Maybe you need to keep that power on the PoE out, and so you can split. Here you can, like our PoE split 4824G-P. So that would be 802.3 AT in. It'll give you 24 volt DC output, so you can power, you know, a lower power camera, but then you can also still keep that 802.3 AT. So it just helps you have a little tool, extra tool in your offerings. Or just a straight splitter. You got 802.3 AT in. We have some cameras that are exclusive to need 24 volt AC. So a lot of different options with that when you're powering different devices. So we have a lot of different product offerings, whether it's 24 AC or 12 volt DC or 5 volt DC. We have our dual PoE output. So this is AC in, but you'll have two 56 volt out at 802.3 AF and AT. giving you 25 watts per port, so you can power a couple different cameras from just one PoE injector. Saves you from having to have a second PoE or having to have a 5-port switch when you're only powering 2 devices. Speaking of switches, we have several different unique switches that we offer. We'll start with our 3-port switch. We call it an extender as well. Without an external power supply, you can plug in an 802.3 AT Cat5 cable, or 802.3 AT input. So run 100 meters, plug in, and now you have 2 outputs, and you can run another 100 meters, or just run up your tower and be able to power 2 devices, but only running 1 Cat5 cable. So kind of handy to have, eliminating the need to run some extra cable runs, and you can daisy chain together to run a couple 100 meters, 300-400 meters at a 100 meters at a time without having to trench power out to that site. We have many 5-port switches, all gigabit. Versa, I've already talked about. That one has 3 ports at 802.3 AT and a high PoE. So if you have that PTZ camera that can handle up to 60 watts, this is a great one for it. We have our multi-switch, which will handle multiple volt inputs and outputs. Our Dash 24, that's one of our most popular. What that does is it takes anything from 10 to 36 volt DC in, and it'll convert 802.3 AT on 4 ports, and then you have 1 uplink. So this, if you're powering just all 802.3 AT compliant devices, this is a great one for you. Our Dash D is just a straight, 1 power supply at 46 to 58 in, giving you 802.3 AT output. Our NC switch is just a compliant. What you put in, is a non-compliant, I apologize. So it's a passive switch. What you put in is what you will receive output from those ports. And then we recently released our BT switch as well. So it's a BT input, so much higher power input, and be able to switch, spread that on all the ports on the output on that. And we also have our managed switches. So we offer 4-port and 8-port at 802.3 AT, as well as 2 fiber ports. This is a fully manageable switch. So, great offering, industrial strength with the extended temperature range that it can handle. So, like I said, it is 802.3 AT compliant. So when you want to have some insight as to what's happening at your with your switch, you're able to log in and just fully manage that. So, and then we have some different accessories that you can add to that kind of just don't fit in those categories, but maybe make you aware of a couple things that we offer. We do have surge protection, so if you are not using one of our DC converters, or you have your own PoE injector or switch, this is a great, the ESP1000 PoE or the PoE 24. You can just put as an inline extra protection for surges. And then we have a 24-port version, rack mounted, that is PoE, PoE++, and PoE Plus. So if you have a lot of different devices and want to power that, if you're, put that in your closet. So we have another PoE extender. This is IP66 rated, no external power supply required, 802.3 AT in, run another 100 meters. 802.3 AT out. So, and like I said, on this one, same thing, you can daisy chain a few of those together so that you don't, obviously you can only run 100 meters on the Cat5 cable. So this gives you the ability to extend that. A couple other PoE converters that we have. If you have, let's say that you have a switch that you just love and you paid a lot of money for it, you don't want to have to switch out your switch, but now you've got some other devices that require higher power. Our PoE converter 2AF AT, it'll take 2 ports of 802.3 AF combined to give you 30 watt output. So your 802.3 AT. Well, let's say that you have an even higher capacity. You got an AT switch, but you need 60 watts. You can take 2 of those ports, plug into the PoE converter, and it'll give you a 1 PoE output at 60 watts. So, this is great to add on to an existing site, but maybe you're upgrading your cameras or access point. So this allows you to have just a higher power. It is utilizing an extra port from that switch, but it saves you from having to buy a whole new switch. We have many different voltage regulators. So we have just about any voltage input that you have to whatever voltage output. So this would be a straight wire terminal or bare wire. Our VRs are the bare wire, so you've got two wire, positive, negative, going to positive, negative. But this is for maybe you're pulling from batteries, which have a varying voltage output. This will allow you to regulate that power, to your device that may be a little bit more sensitive. And then our VRHP is our wire terminal, just a higher power version of that. So I think that covers it. Looks like we're back home. Hopefully I answered most of your questions, but if not, feel free to jump into the chat, and then we'll see what we can do to answer those questions for you.
Awesome, thanks, Seth. There are some questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and begin to ask them. So one of the questions is asking, are there enclosures insulated?
We do not insulate. We've done many tests. We do actually, we brought in some insulation and tested, and we didn't see a major difference. We do provide, so our biggest concern is heat, right? Typically the parts that you're putting in, whether it's switches, batteries, it's all generating heat. So usually heat isn't a concern. We have had customers in really cold environments in Canada, Wisconsin, that have buried the battery bank or the enclosure with batteries in to help kind of insulate. But we do provide a thermostatically controlled fan to prevent heat. So that's our biggest concern, is just overheating. So if you're in an environment that has excess heat, we do have a fan that helps keep it cool. So it turns on at about 95, 97 degrees and helps cool it down. We have these systems installed all over the world, including the most harsh deserts and the coldest climates. And so we have, without insulation, we still have no issues with with overheating or being too cold.
All right, great. Next question, does the TPDIN monitor have SNMP and Modbus support?
It does. So it is accessible via SNMP or through the web. We do have a free app, just Tycon Systems, available through Google Play or what is the Apple stuff. And so you can actually log in and control that equipment. So yes, we have it fully accessible for those through that.
Okay. Next question, do you have plans to release TPDIN-SC48-20 as a 24-volt solar and charging system and still supply a 48 PoE and 24 passive?
That is something that is in our on our engineering team's table. So that is something that we're looking at doing, maybe a smaller version, maybe not have a 7-port option, but maybe like a 4-port at a 24-volt solar input. So yeah, that is absolutely something that we're looking at releasing in the future.
Great, thanks. Next question, do you have a pre-built system for Starlink configurations at remote locations?
Nothing pre-built, just because there's variables, right? Are you installing that in southern Texas or northern Kentucky, right? Sunlight's going to be different. So what we do is, I've shown you how to use the calculator page, but I still ask you. We're happy. Our support team loves helping design the systems for you. So we actually have a tab on our website that says Request System Design. You just tell us what you're powering and your location, and then we'll do the rest. So nothing cookie cutter. We don't have anything that's just released. We obviously have pre-built part numbers, but that will obviously just change based on your location and power draw. So, click on the link. We're happy to help you, or send us an email to support@tyconsystems.com. Like I said, we just need to know the part numbers that you're powering, and then the quantities if you're doing multiples of the devices, and then the zip code or the city state or the city country. And then our design team will be able to assist.
Awesome. Next question. Would you choose 2.4 versus 5 if the same throughput and distance?
It depends on your environment, right? So 2.4 is more common. So if you have possibly a lot more interference or the potential of more interference, I would go with 5 gig. You have more non-overlapping channels than the 2.4, so you have less risk of interference. What I typically see is Wi-Fi being used in the 2.4, whereas in the backhauls are 5 gig. We sell more of our 2.4 easy bridges though than of the 5. But a lot of those are in areas where you don't have Wi-Fi or you don't have a lot of interference. So it just kind of depends on what interference you may have in your area.
All right. What about custom enclosures? Is that something that is offered?
We don't typically. I mean, if there's something, we would need to know what you need to do to customize, right? So obviously, it would need to be, there would be an MOQ involved. We have customized for specific customers, with the MOQ. So it kind of just depends on the customization that you need done and what it entails. So, but something that I've learned from in working with Scott is that he is so open to customer requests. We're always listening to our customers. That's where we get a lot of our inspiration. So if you have something that's unique or different, I promise you, if you ask us, we won't make you feel stupid. We really want to get those suggestions from you, because that's where we get most of our ideas. So.
All right, awesome. Next one is there a DIN rail bracket?
There is. So we do offer DIN rails, but we also have DIN rail brackets. It's called our DIN clip kit. And it's just these green DIN clip connectors that can mount to just about any of our DC converters or switches, and making your device DIN rail mountable. So yes, we do offer that.
Awesome. Looks like those were all the questions that we had. So thank you, Seth. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I hope this was very valuable. If you wanted to have any closing remarks, Seth, please do so.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Our goal I know that solar might be very new to some of you. Our goal, my job, is to help educate. So if you have questions or you have customers that have questions, please feel free to reach out. We're very open to getting on a call with you. We have a YouTube channel where we can get into more depth on how to design our different systems. We talk about our different products. So our goal is to help educate. So please feel free to reach out anytime. We are really happy to help learn about the technology that's out there. So thank you so much for the chance to have this webinar.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.